Joining me is Sky News Political Editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew Clennell, thanks for joining me. What did this censure motion today actually achieve?
Well, not a lot. I guess what it did achieve, Andrew, is it made Scott Morrison justify to the Parliament why he did what he did. And I thought that was useful. I think some people will feel sorry for him, though, and think the government are kicking him while he's down. So I'm not sure it was the success that the government saw it as. I guess the government would also say, look, if there's bad behaviour like that towards the Parliament, towards the public, towards even his own colleagues, it has to be held to account. And that was a way they could do that. But the way Morrison went on the counter-attack, he couldn't really justify his actions, but he did point out a lot of good things he did in office, how he was responding at various times to an emergency situation. And he had a powerful argument, I thought. So I thought it benefited Scott Morrison actually a little bit, ironically. But at least he was made to account for his actions.
Yeah, but you tackled him at the one press conference where he did address that before this, and I don't think he's moved on from the non-arguments he gave then. I don't think he could justify what he did, but I think it was very powerful in saying, and I believe it, that this was a show trial, a political use of force just to crush him. It was quite strong on that. And I wonder whether that explained why Albanese, he said, I didn't intend to speak, and then, took up 2 speaking slots to argue back, whether he thought what you just suggested, that perhaps this was backfiring a bit and making Scott Morrison look like a victim and he had to step in.
Well, perhaps. I mean, I thought Morrison was kind of all over Tony Burke. Tony Burke had done the initial speech on it. I think he planned to be measured, not to go over the top. But in doing so, gave Morrison an opportunity. And then, it was like Anthony Albanese was justifying why the censure motion was important. So I don't know what they expected. The guy's a former PM. He knows how to speak in the Parliament. Did they expect him to just lie down and die? Certainly they hope for some division on the coalition side. They got Karen Andrews to abstain and Bridget Archer across the floor. So there was that, but perhaps not the division they were hoping for.
Well, Bridget Archer crossing the floor, hold the front page. How many times has she done that already? She may as well just sit with the Teals and be done with it. Talk about a fake Liberal. The Liberal Party should really disendorse her. This is getting too much. They're funding someone who just votes against them all the time. Good news for the government, good news for Australia, in fact, too, really. Inflation figures finally coming down. Today's figure for the last month was 6.9% inflation. Still high, of course, Andrew, but down from 7.3 the month before. The government would be relieved.
Yeah, I think the government would be relieved, but they're being cautious. The Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, is pointing out this doesn't take into account the effect of the floods in Victoria and the effect of that on grocery prices, or the first increase in power bills we're seeing in the last quarter of the year. So I think you've got to hope it stays at this level next month and next quarter. There's no guarantee of that. I still think even if you take that into account, it is a good sign, Andrew, because you see in the US and the UK, they don't seem to be able to arrest it, no matter how much rates rise. I think it also indicates how important it is in the next week or so that Anthony Albanese comes up with a solution on reducing energy prices, making sure they don't hit the forecasts in the budget. Because if they were to hit those forecasts, inflation will be a problem for a lot longer because of how many things power bills and gas bills feed into. They feed into so many different price points. So that's a really critical thing for the government. And I think we'll see a rates rise on Tuesday as well, but at least it won't be one of those 0.5 ones. It'll probably be 0.25, but it could even be 0.15. So fingers crossed on this one. It's the first time there hasn't been an increase in the rates figure since prior to the election, since around March, February. So it can only be good news. It shows all this pain from the interest rate rises is actually finally having an effect.
Yep. And as you say, it's the first sign we've had so far that the various interest rate rises by the Reserve Bank have been have had an effect. So we shall see. I think you're right. The Reserve Bank will go slow from now on and just hope and wait. You broke the story yesterday about the government's plan to tackle rising gas prices. How does it actually work?
Well, what they plan to do, my understanding, is force exporters, when in terms of their uncontracted gas, to sell to the domestic market, sell a certain amount at a certain price, cap that price. The speculation in the newspapers is it's around $12 a kilojoule, which is a lot better than the $40 we've seen on occasion since the Ukraine war. And but the issue that will come forward out of this, is my understanding, is the feds at the moment are saying to the states, we'll deal with the gas price, you deal with the coal price, which makes up half the problem when it comes to electricity bills. So that's one to watch, because you don't want to just solve half the problem.
I think that's a long, long way to go. And the impact of investment in fossil fuels in Australia, which still supply, nearly 3/4 of our electricity, might be something we don't like in the future. Andrew Clennell, thank you so much for your time.